What's going on, G fans? LP2000 coming back at you again with another video. And in case some of y'all may not be aware of this, but San Diego Comic Con is happening out in the West Coast, and that's a comic convention that showcases like trailers of new movies and everything when it comes to popular culture. Well, apparently, it was reported that they announced plans of the next Godzilla movie, the sequel to the blockbuster that came out in May of this year, directed by Gareth Edwards, which was a phenomenal success and a great way to kick off or reboot the Godzilla franchise. Well, apparently, rumors have been circulating from the convention, and apparently it's been announced that in this next Godzilla movie, Godzilla will also return, but also with his old former co-stars from Toho, Rodan, King Ghidorah, and Mothra. And that is great and especially intriguing news for us G fans, because they did a phenomenal job with Godzilla in this movie. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra, which basically are the four fathers of kaiju, in my opinion. When you think of top monsters in the Toho line, I mean, obviously the first that comes to mind is Godzilla. Maybe next, maybe Rodan, then Mothra, and King Ghidorah. So the fact that these three other monsters will be in a new Godzilla movie is great. Very, very great. Also, for you G fan or G Godzilla collectors out there, as far as figures or whatever, X Plus, which makes great movie accurate and compelling figures, have announced that they have decided to release a King Ghidorah vinyl figure. Now, mind you, X Plus made these figures also: Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. This King Ghidorah is made of resin. It was made by X Plus USA, and X Plus is going to release a vinyl figure, which has been like the most sought after figure or most requested figures that fans wanted X Plus to make, and they have finally announced that they're going to make a King Ghidorah vinyl version. So with that being said, with the great news from the Comic-Con about Godzilla Part 2 coming out with the three classic monsters joining Godzilla, the X Plus announcement of King Ghidorah, I decided it'll be appropriate for the next review that I do will be on the classic film Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. And as you can see, I got all the major kaiju, or all the kaiju from the movie, and I will talk about the pros and cons, and basically do what I've been doing for the past couple videos. So I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you find it informative, and I hope that you can benefit from it. Now, a little bit of history here. This movie is called Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. Came out December 20th, 1964. Also the same year they produced Mothra vs. Godzilla, which is my favorite film, by the way. And as this is the Blu-ray copy from Toho, Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. And it was brought over to the States a year later in 1965 by Continental Distribution or Distributing, and it was actually changed from Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster to Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. And personally, I prefer the name Ghidorah. I don't know, maybe because I grew up with that name, so I prefer the name Ghidorah. It just sounds better to me than King Ghidorah. Now, mind you, King Ghidorah is my favorite villain, but I just prefer the way that pronunciation, Ghidorah. But that's just my personal opinion, But just to give you a little history about the project, from the research that I've done, I've not uncovered a lot of research, or at least a lot of information about it. The only thing that I was able to find out about this film in early production, before it went to the screen, Ghidorah was going to have a vastly different look than he has right now, or as he always has been. But instead of a golden flying dragon, he was going to be a dragon, but he was going to have rainbow-colored wings, a purple body, still three heads, but he was going to spit fire instead of lightning gravity beams. And I think we can all agree that I'm glad they decided to go with this version, because the idea of a rainbow-colored wings, purple body, like he came out of a clown shop. I mean, he wouldn't have that iconic and menacing presence that he does if he had those colors. I mean, this is the perfect way to have King Ghidorah or King Ghidorah. So, with that being said, like I said, the movie is called Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It came out in Japan as the title, Three Giant Monsters, Earth's Greatest Battle or Greatest Battle on Earth. And I will give you a synopsis of it. Basically, the gist of the plot is a policeman is assigned to watch over a princess from another country who's under an assassination attempt or assassination plot. On her way to Japan for protection, her plane mysteriously blows up. So apparently her assassinators got to her. And later on, mysteriously, we found out she survives. And she actually claims to be a prophetess from the planet Mars. And she begins to tell the whole world, or anybody who's going to listen to her, that disasters are coming. Like the world will suffer from disasters. And also at the same time, a meteorite shower happens in Japan, and one gigantic meteorite crashes and lands on Japanese countryside, which some scientists decide to take a look at it and study it, and discover that it has magnetic properties. Meanwhile, the prophetess is still shouting to the masses that disasters are coming, and lo and behold, out of nowhere, Rodan comes to terrorize the world. Then Godzilla comes to terrorize the world. And then if that wasn't bad enough, the meteorite breaks open, and out of a ball of flame, in one of the best special effects shot in the entire Toho franchise series, out comes King Ghidorah. So Japan not only has to deal with Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah terrorizing the world, I mean, they really have no other option and nowhere to go. So they decided to enlist Mothra for help, because Mothra does make an appearance. So Mothra swims from her home and to enlist the help of Godzilla and Rodan, which they are basically fighting each other, and enlist him to help her to join together to fight King Ghidorah to save the world. And at first she gets some resistance, but in the end Godzilla and Rodan do help Mothra, and together they defeat King Ghidorah and drive him back into space. And that's basically the gist of the plot. And that's basically it. Now, as far as pros and cons, now there's not many cons that I see, so I'll leave that for last. But the pros, because there are so many pros. The first pro that I would go to is the story. The story is actually engaging. Mostly in these Godzilla films, sometimes the story is so boring that we want to rush through the human development and get to the monster action. But in this one and a couple other movies like Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster or Mothra vs. Godzilla, the human story is really engaging, especially with the assassination attempt on the princess. We find out how she becomes a prophetess from Mars. Actually, in the English version, it's Mars, but in the Japanese version, it's Venus, but I'll get to that later. The story is really engaging until the monster action happens. It's like everything is blended together perfectly. Like the monster action don't take too long to happen. The human story doesn't drag on too long. It's just a very interesting story, and I'm engaged in it from beginning to finish. It's not like I'm looking at my clock to okay, when Godzilla is going to appear, when Rodan is going to appear. It's like the story makes you forget about that in a way, because it's so intriguing. And then when the monster action happens, it's just better beyond words. It's blended together. Kind of like Mothra vs. Godzilla, the story was engaging, and when the monster action happens, they blend it together to make one of the perfect Godzilla movies. It's like the story is very engaging, which is one of the pros. The second pro are the monsters themselves, and how they are relevant to the story. I mean, for me personally, the idea of having Rodan appearing out of nowhere randomly, then you have Godzilla here randomly, and then all of a sudden you have King Ghidorah. All these things happen, and it's like they keep on happening one on top of another. It's like the Japanese people like, oh my God, we gotta deal with Rodan because he appeared first. Then it's like, that was bad enough. You got Godzilla that comes out of the sea, and he starts doing his thing. It's like, oh my God, we gotta deal with that. Then you got a monster which is basically more lethal than the two of them combined, King Ghidorah. So it's just, the fact that these monsters are in this film and the way they portray them as far as the character, it's just perfect. I mean, I love that. I love the idea of these monsters coming out of nowhere randomly to terrorize the world. And I will get to each monster specifically. Now, Rodan. I love Rodan in this film. This is, by the way, the 25 centimeter X Plus Rodan. Very, very accurately detailed. One of my favorite pieces in my collection. But I like Rodan. This is by far my favorite movie of Rodan. And this is my favorite incarnation of Rodan. I like him because of the fact that of his appearance. He has that menacing, but not too menacing look, like he means business. But the fact that he's very aggressive in this movie. Like and basically the way this movie happens, Rodan appears and he starts flying around. Then Godzilla appears. And basically Godzilla does what Godzilla did in the last movie, Mothra vs. Godzilla. He just basically goes about his business and just goes through the countryside. He goes through, I believe, Tokyo, and then Rodan follows him. Basically, Godzilla's minding his own business. Rodan actually is the one that starts the fight with Godzilla first. Rodan drew first blood first. He attacked Godzilla first, which in turn Godzilla at that point was still not paying him no mind. But then Rodan got up in his face and started antagonizing him again. I like that. I like Rodan the way that he brought the fight to Godzilla. There's not many monsters that can bring the fight to Godzilla, especially in one shot. He actually lifts Godzilla up in the air and just flies him and drops him where his, you know what I'm talking about. He drops him on an electrical tower, and he drops him on a place where I can't really say it on video because there might be children watching, but just watch the movie. He drops him on a very delicate place. Is like I never seen Godzilla treated like that. I mean, the fact that Rodan did that and the fact that he was able to stand toe to toe with Godzilla is amazing. It's not, like I said, it's not too many monsters that can go toe to toe with Godzilla. So I like Rodan for that purpose, and he does serve some muscle when it comes to dispatching King Ghidorah. So I love Rodan. This is my like I said, my favorite appearance from Rodan, my favorite movie from Rodan. In the next movie, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, he plays kind of like a sidekick role, but I get to that in another video. But in this movie, this is his time to shine. He shines most to me in this movie. To me, he shines better than his original movie. But that's just my opinion. Also, Godzilla. Let's go to Godzilla for a little bit. Godzilla does what he normally does in this movie. He basically just wants to terrorize the world, and that's basically it. Also, at the same time, this is the movie where it marked for the first time that Godzilla was going the transition from villain to hero, because Toho recognized that little children love Godzilla so much, so they decided to change his character to reflect as such. And it works. I mean, there's a good explanation as to why, you know, he makes the change, and, you know, basically knowing that King Ghidorah is the monster that needs to be stopped. So of course he goes from villain to hero. When you first see him, the first thing he does is basically set fire to a ship. So he still has that villainous tendencies, but by the end, he does work for the common good to eradicate King Ghidorah. And also, I love his suit. This is by far my favorite Godzilla design, the Mosu Goji. And actually, it's the same suit, but they modified his face a little bit. They changed the eyes a little bit, made it more rounded. It didn't have that evil, menacing, nasty look he had in Mothra vs. Godzilla. They changed it obviously because they were changing him more towards a hero or anti-hero. So I like that, and I like that he was able to bring the fight to King Ghidorah, because he fought Ghidorah from the front. Rodan handled like from the sky, from his back, and Mothra handled like the tail. So Godzilla took mostly the brunt and basically most of the fighting in a way. The fact he took King Ghidorah head on with his multiple heads going and his gravity beams going every which way. So, and of course it's Godzilla. I mean, how can that not be your favorite monster? I mean, that's why we're here in the first place. They wouldn't be here if he wasn't here. So of course all props go to Godzilla. I mean, he does have a magnificent presence in this film. Yes, he does a little bit of comedy antics, like when he